Hey friends, welcome to Your Event Elevated. This week we're going to be talking about a particular application of the way that we conduct events and how great it is actually for communities when communities come together. So what is this all about? I really believe that most meetings or, whether retreats, conferences, conventions, aren't that good. Right? They kind of suck. And we make meetings not suck. How do we do that? Well, often the best part of a convention is what happens in the bar after the main event. So we bring the bar into the room, create high levels of connection and collaboration, and allow every person in the room to be elevated, not just the people up on the high stage. And so I want to talk today about a particular application of this. Often I get hired to come in and work with an organization, a company, or a community for an event, right? Something that has a beginning and an end. But also, I have gotten to work with some ongoing communities, right? Communities of people that are connected in some way or another, right? Whether it's through a hobby they have, or it's a particular project that they all like working on. And that they have an ongoing meetings. And one of the things that we're finding is that the way that we approach a meetings, right, informed by the exchange community, I'm a certified exchange guide, and the way that they do things informed by appreciative inquiry and this process we use in the Your Event Elevated space is how effective this is for accountability. Now, as soon as I said that word accountability, you probably had something flash in your mind as to what that means. And so I want to go a little deeper into that. And I'm going to particularly share with a community that I'm facilitating right now. We're still in search of a name. Right now, it's going to be called Your Business Elevated, powered by the Adventure Habit. And this is a cool group of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners who love working hard on their business and love having cool adventures. And then I'm probably going to mention one other group that I've been working with for the last year and that we're starting a new round with that group of 2024. But we'll get to that. The thing about accountability is that as soon as I say that word, what flashes into a lot of people's head is what I call shame-based accountability, right? It's accountability that says you said you would do something, right? You said you would do something, and you didn't do it, right? And because of that, I'm going to stand in judgment of your character. This is what I think shame-based accountability does. It provides shame for your failure to do what you said you would do. And we're going to talk about an alternative to that in a minute, but I want to deep dive into this a little bit. I was reminded of this reading this book, The 12-Week Year, which was given to me by one of our community members in the Adventure Habit. So appreciate that, Tiffany, for sending me this book. And there's a chapter here called Accountability as Ownership. And I love what they say, which is that accountability is not consequences, it's ownership. And yet the shame-based accountability, fear-based accountability so often starts with the place of, hey, let's put some consequences in place so that you'll do the things that you said you would do. And by the way, it can be an effective way to, I guess, do something that maybe that you're worried you won't want to do later. Right? Stephen Covey famously said that, and Stephen Covey's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's probably his most well-known book. He said that integrity is doing what you said you would do when you no longer feel the way you felt when you said it. So the example might be, hey, I'm going to go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I say that at 2 in the afternoon, but at 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't feel like getting up. Right? But if I put a consequence in place, hey, if I don't show up, at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'll wear an embarrassing hat all day or something like that. So the fear of the consequence causes us to take the action when we don't feel like it. And ownership and what we're going to call care-based accountability has a different perspective and a different goal in mind. And we'll talk about that in a second, because I want to just finish up on a couple things related to fear-based accountability and shame-based accountability. Fear-based accountability and shame-based accountability only care about making you do the behavior. That's like the only goal of it. It's the only result of it. By the way, reward-based systems of accountability do the same thing. They only care about the behavior, and don't actually necessarily take into account the full humanity of the person standing in front of you, right? The other thing that I see a lot with fear-based and shame-based accountability is that it's often the standard, the behavior is chosen by the leader, right? Or whoever's perceived to be the leader, whoever is the person who's going to hold you accountable, right? And so it becomes their standard, right? I remember going to a sales class where it was like, these are the prescribed activities you will do this following week. And there was a lot of shame built into that room, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear built into that room. A lot of results in the room, but I'm not sure how long-lasting the results were. What I often found is that they burned out. A lot of the people who attended that burned out really fast, right? And in those shame-based accountability environments, it didn't last. It didn't have the staying power that we would hope for. Well, let's talk a little bit about the alternative. The alternative is care-based accountability, right? And again, in 12-week year, they talk about the idea of ownership. And they start with, I thought this was a fascinating way that they presented this, that accountability starts with choice. And the distinction that I thought was so great is that under what I'm calling fear-based accountability, you have to do the behavior, right? You have to make these sales calls a certain way. You have to show up at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Whatever that is, it's a have to, it's a must. It's an external locus of control. Somebody outside of you is providing external motivation. When instead we can say, I choose this, we have an internal locus of control, right? I want to do this. I want the result, the things that will come from this, right? That I choose to go at 5 o'clock in the morning because I know how I will feel at the end of the day, because I know how I will feel over the next weeks, months, and years when I do my exercise habit. I will make these sales calls because I know that, because I want to. Now, is there a part of me that doesn't want to? Absolutely. But is there another part that does want to? And we can tap into that internal locus of control. We can tap into that long-term motivation. Guess what? There's more staying power, right? There's more staying power. There's more ability to continually do the activity week after week, month after month, year after year. The other thing about care-based accountability that I think is so valuable after choice is that it's custom. It's not, hey, here's the standard, here's the expectation, you will do this, you will do that. Every person is different. They have a different set of values. They have a different set of responsibilities that they've chosen. They have a different set of, obligations and duties that they've chosen. And they have to balance a lot of those things. So for someone from the outside to come in and say, this is what you should do, must do, will do, right? Doesn't take into account the full scope of who this person is that's sitting in front of us, and that they may have to make choices. Hey, sorry I couldn't be at the gym, but my kid was sick, and I choose to be at the hospital with my kid, not with you at the gym, right? Well, that might be obvious, and accountability cares enough about the person, the whole person, to allow them to customize what they would choose to be accountable to. But the interesting thing is that most accountability starts with the self-accountability, right? Now, when we create healthy environments, the third thing that gets created right after choice and after being custom is a true community, right? People who are actually communing with one another, whole person meeting whole person. And I'll give you a great example of this. Is one of the fun groups that I get to facilitate every month is a group of archery elk hunters, right? And it's all volunteer. It's all, nobody is there, right, under a burden or obligation. Everybody is there by free choice, which also means like there's very little room to sort of like lord it over somebody if they don't choose something. But what's interesting, and I'll reference another book, James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, is in this book, he says this really powerful line. He said, the easiest way to create a new behavior, to create a new habit, is to put yourself in an environment where the habit you desire is the norm, where the habit that you desire is the norm, right? And what these folks have done who choose to be in this this bow hunting, archery elk hunting accountability group that we call Elk Shape. It's based on some work by a guy named Dan Staton called Elk Shape, and we're the Iron Sharpens Iron group, and what's fascinating is because these are like-minded people who care about becoming the best version of themselves, not just with shooting a bow, not just with getting out in the woods and finding elk, but with like their physical health, their family life. They care about a lot of different things. What's crazy is people show up month after month and say, hey, I did what I said I would do last month, or I didn't do what I said I would do last month, because they love being in an environment of like-minded people who have a few values in common, and that they're able to freely choose what activities, what behaviors they would choose over the course of the next weeks and months, right? And so we see this over and over again, that accountability that is externally motivated is often shame and fear-based, right? It is based on consequences and someone else's standards. But that care-based accountability, right, is based first on free choice, right? The agency of the person in front of us. It's based on it being custom, and it's based on happening in community. That like-minded human, right, like heart on heart meeting and agreement on what you would choose over this next month, and caring enough about you to ask you how it went if you did it, right? And so these are the environments that we create. What I think is so important in this too is the idea that, and I want to just go back to this on choice. The idea that it comes to choice is that whatever choice we make, including the choice to not make a choice, is a choice. And we have to get to a point where we choose our sacrifice, where we choose what difficult thing we would do to maybe achieve something better. Because if we choose a not difficult thing, we may be building in difficulty for ourselves later in life. I think this is one of the lessons, if you ever go back and read Peter Pan, actually. It's one of my favorite stories. It's one that continues to inform who I am as a person. But if you read the original Jan Berry book, Peter is not a likable person at all. Like, he will often be involved in a fight, right, with the Lost Boys and the pirates, and the Lost Boys will start to gain the advantage, and Peter will switch sides and start fighting on behalf of the pirates because he's bored, right? Well, that's not a person who is someone you would want to emulate, right? Who simply goes based on their base desires, their feelings, just because he's bored, he wants to switch sides. And what we find is that over time, like, the thing that's attractive about Peter is that he's all potential, right? He could be anything. He won't grow up, right? Because he could be anything. And so all of his fantasies become reality. This is where Neverland comes from, is from the imagination of this boy. But he also doesn't have any great relationships, right? Like, the Lost Boys kind of fear him. They don't really care about him. This is Wendy's continued kind of frustration with Peter that he won't grow up, that he won't choose something to become. And when we choose ownership and accountability, it's us saying, this is what I will do. And I want to make sure that I take these actions over the next few weeks. And will you care enough about me to ask me if I did it, how it went, what choices I made, so that we can pick a game plan for what happens next. This is what accountability is based on when I think it's done well and I think it's done healthy. And this is how we make not only great like events, right, but great like series of events within community that have long-lasting staying power, right? They build depth of relationship based on the whole person, not just the thing that we're about, right? So this group of business owners with the Adventure Habit don't just talk about business. They talk about the whole person's life, what kind of parent they are, what kind of spouse they are, how their physical health is, what kind of cool adventures they're having, right? As well as, hiring and marketing and sales and right production. In this group of bow hunters, we don't just talk about bow hunting, right? We talk about all areas of our life because we care about the whole person. We care about all areas of our life. Hey, thanks so much for taking a listen. If you are interested or curious about how we might be able to work together, either on an event that you have coming up, or if you're curious about this community of entrepreneurs who get together under this moniker of the Adventure Habit, people who love to talk about and work on business and like to do cool stuff, reach out to me. I'd love to tell you more about it and see how we might be able to work together.